Okay, today is just Korean Peninsula and the DPRK. As you know, situation of Northeast Asia, the Korean Peninsula, there are countries North Korea, Russia, and China, and then Japan and South Korea. As you know, Russia now makes its voice against USA challenge. China makes its voice too against US challenge. DPRK Korea has long made its voice and roles against USA imperialists and followers such as Japan and South Korea. However, Western media, including US major news media, used to report North Korea's provocation against South Korea and United States. But facts are all wrong because historical facts show the proofs. As you know, I think you guys have hit 1886 wrong. 1866, the ship called Sherman with weapons invaded the Daedong River of Korean Peninsula. But Korean farmers captured and fired. And then the 1882, USA and Korea trade treaty, diplomatic relation all the time. Then several years later, 1905, Taft-Gatsura. Taft is the military ministry in America. Gatsura is the Japanese the minister. The secret agreement, and then the Japan make United States America. Okay, you occupy the Philippines, and then USA allows Japan occupy this Korean Peninsula secretly. Then the 5 years later, the Japan occupied the Korean Peninsula for 36 years, starting 1910 up to 1945. At that time, Korea was occupied by Japan for 36 years from 1945. During this period, the Japan forces killed Koreans 1 million plus. Killed, it's a massacre, and arrested and kidnapped 8.5 million Koreans. You can imagine? 1 million killed, 8.5 million arrested and kidnapped. The one incident we Korean knows is the 3.1 운동. 3.1 운동 means the March 1st movement in 1919. At that single instant, the Japanese killed 10,000 Koreans. 300 women, 300 children at that time, killed by Japanese. Then later, 1923, 6,600 Koreans were killed at the Gando incident in Japan land. You know the Gando, right? Gando. Which part of the Japan? Gando. Central Japan? Okay. During the Korean War between 1950 and 1953, 3 years, you know, some scholars insist it's $4 million were killed. Some scholars it's 5 million. Among them, 1,230,000 North Korean were killed by U.S. Army and bombing. I remember at that time the capital city of the North DPRK is Pyongyang. Its population is about 400,000. Then B-52 were bombed their bombshells. 428,000 bombshells. It was totally destroyed, except 1 or 2 buildings. devastated, totally. Then his international expert came there. It's impossible for you guys, Korean, North Korean, get back. It takes 100 years, but they established, restored about 6 and 7 years. Now is that they make a beautiful capital city and urban city too. As you know, the Philippines also was a victim. Philippines was occupied by USA at those periods. 600,000 Philippine people were killed. And later, additionally, 1 million Philippines were killed by Japanese and USA in the 20th century. As you know, Japan war crime like German, but Japan was not divided. But Korea, a victim of the war crime, was divided by USA. Then next year it's become 70 years. Korea was not the crime. Japan was crime, but Korea was divided. According to experts, U.S. military forces have invaded other countries for over 100 times. Some scholars said 150 times, including Korea and Asian countries, Iraq and Middle East, Latin American countries, African countries, through all the global community, invaded. Not only Iraq and Iran. However, USA has threatened the 9 times of nuclear weapon attacks to Korean Peninsula, and practiced over and over joint military exercises. These military exercises, the last week is finished. Every year, several times. That joint military exercise between South Korea and USA forces for attack, for invading war, the nuclear war. B-2 and B-52. And then they mobilized, when they practiced the joint exercise, is 500,000 military forces, the US Army and South Korean armies. That means it's North Korea, those periods of tension. These kind of tension last 70 years. Tension, life of tension, North Korean people. As you know, United Nations 30th General Assembly, I remember at that time decided withdraw US forces out of Korea, but USA violated. In the Clinton administration, USA and DPRK made a joint statement for peace and diplomatic normalization in September 2000. DPRK Army General Jo Myung-nok visited here, and then the Albright, the State Department, Secretary of State Department visited Pyongyang. But it was the mood is very good. But unfortunately, George W. Bush became president by using, I think it's a fraudulent, isn't it? The court decide, right? Then, according to recent news, is the USA again deployed 1,720 nuclear warheads in the fringe area of the Korean Peninsula. Then, on this kind of a situation, how DPRK reacted? Then, North Korea needed to survive. How are we going to survive? They studied and they worried again and again. Then they make nuclear test the first time, 2003, January 10. Second nuclear test is 2006 October. Third nuclear test is 2013 February. Then April 12, DPRK officially announced a state of nuclear weapon possession in their constitution. The USA and UN, trust or not, they don't care. But we have self-defense. This means is that USA pushed DPRK to become nuclear state. Actually, North Korea wanted to non-nuclear nation very long time. However, US pushed, especially George W. Bush pushed them. You are axis of evil, DPRK, Iran and Iraq. That's why they needed to the breakthrough how to we survive. That's why they could not but help making nuclear deterrence, nuclear weapon. Their nuclear weapons is totally different from nuclear weapons of United States of America. United States of America nuclear weapons is for purposing to attack, but there is a defending from superpowers. Totally different. But now, USA is facing crisis. I think you know about the well. USA economic crisis is $17.5 trillion. The conservative points, maybe over 20 trillion. No money. United States government is no money. They owe a lot of money from China, Japan, and Korea. USA lost also credibility because it oppressed, interfered other countries. The situation is Korean Peninsula now is a status of South Korea. As you know, well, state of South Korea is a puppet of the USA. The South Korea has no military commanding power. South Korea Army commanding power held by United States commander, not their own. That is not independent country, South Korea. No freedom of press. Progressive newspaper is going to die because of the government oppression. I know the friends are over there. They are under pressure. 2 times they are arrested. There's no committed crime. Just to wrote down their facts about the North Korea. And then they arrested the national security law. The Park Geun-hye, as you know, the daughter of the dictator, military dictator Park Chung-hee. Yeah, he is now is a president. But actually she is not president, legal president, because of the fraudulent election by KCIA involvement. This is obvious, but the judicial function is not working. Justice court is not handled that the fraudulent election. That is the reality. In the meantime, status of DPRK Korea, okay, DPRK is an independent of socialist country. DPR Korea has independent commanding power. So that status of DPRK is a role model of the progressive countries. I can dare say. You can believe it, I think. In the meantime, DPRK domestically provided free education, free medical expense, free housing, no tax system. Nobody pays tax. In other words, DPRK is a pure socialist state. I'm the doctor. I'm the PhD. I got the bachelor in South Korea, Yonsei University, master in University of Texas, and then lastly, 2008, I got a PhD from North Korea, DPRK. That why I'm introducing myself is I don't like the line. I like comment based on facts. That's why I introduce myself.
Did you graduate from Kim Il-sung University or?
No, I got a credits.
Okay.
Yeah, I will explain that later.
Okay.
How to get a PhD over there. Okay, the DPRK is guarantees basic human rights. Interpretation of what is human rights is different from U.S. side or U.S. followers. So I agree with their interpretation. Basic human rights have long been guaranteed in the last 66 years in terms of labor rights, no unemployed over there. Women rights, as I told you, pregnancy is 6 months is a vacation. Children's rights, not only international camp, the baby, kindergarten, the high school, every kids play music instrument, violin, guitar, I think almost 90%, but not those kind of kids. They play these gymnastic things like that. I was surprised, really. Children are king of that country. I could not observe other country treated, children treated like that. Pension system, including housing, clothing, foods, 95% free, but 5% is some depends on ability. Now, DPRK completed self-defense with nuclear deterrence. I told you first and second, third time is succeeded. Now they 2012 is they succeeded is a satellite. Still is hanging around space. The USA CIA knows well about that. ICBM they developed it by their own wisdom, their own knowledge, their own skill, their own material. ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, reaching to White House. And their economic development process is in full swing, especially in the recent 4 or 5 years. This time is 62 times, maybe 58 times visit to North Korea. Outside is working, digging earth, big trucks are coming down back and forth. Why? I didn't know that before. They did not complete its self-defense. And then they make nuclear deterrence, and then satellite, ICBM. That's why young leader is only 33 years. This young leader, the exactly date of birth is 1982, January 8. Is a young leader. Maybe I think younger than you. He's a great leader. He knows everything, especially his high-tech, the military, the industry. Okay, now I'm going to conclude.